Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 78 of Fracking Nightmare. And we have a very challenging show tonight. We're going to be looking at a lot of challenging situations, not least in California and also in the northwest of England. But of course, regular viewers of Fracking Nightmare will know that I've also had my own challenges over the last few weeks. In last week's episode, of course, we looked at the video from Russia Today of the interview that I gave after my detention at Exeter Airport by Special Branch. Well, if the establishment thought it could intimidate me, I hate to say this, but I think they picked the wrong guy. But of course, the intimidation continues as I am due in court on Wednesday to face Rathlin Energy, although I doubt anybody from Rathlin Energy will, of course, be there. But let's just fill you in on a few of the basics here. Of course, Rathlin Energy are the company that have the largest license area in the northwest of England, the largest single license, that is. Of course, there are other companies, not least INEOS and iGas, that have larger acreage in the north of England. But Rathlin Energy have this area here over in East Yorkshire, and the Wolds and Holderness. But let's just have a look at the absurdity of the situation. And of course, the magnitude of this absurdity will be much clearer later on in the show when we look at what's going on in the global arena with regards to the oil price and, of course, also the stock price of these companies. And, of course, let's not forget that today is the day that Iranian oil came back on stream. Although, of course, the Americans lifted sanctions and, then immediately put them back again. So we're going to see how that works. But anyway, let's have a look at Rathlin here, because Rathlin Energy is actually the epitome of what is known in the oil and gas industry as a zombie company. This is a dead corporation trying to walk. And if we look at the numbers here, now this is last year's accounts, and of course Rathlin have had zero revenue in the ensuing period. But just look at these numbers here, because Rathlin have assets of 3.2 million, that's physical assets, cash assets of £1 million. But look at this, their liabilities are £27.2 million. Which means that they have a net worth of minus 25.1 million. So this is not a particularly healthy situation. And of course, over the ensuing months, they have incurred further debt. So there's little doubt that by now their net worth is the wrong side of 30 million negative. So with the price of oil where it is, of course, minus or sub $30 a barrel, there is no possibility of Rathlin actually generating any income anytime soon. And neither is there much likelihood of anybody else stepping in to take it off their hands, even for this volume of debt. So this is the company that has the audacity to sue me for bankruptcy, but there again, you can see that they're getting pretty desperate right now, so they must think that every penny counts. Well, Rathlin, of course, are actually owned by Connaught and in Canada, and a few months ago, Connaught announced the parent company of Rathlin Energy, which is exploring for gas in East Yorkshire, is selling all its assets in Canada to focus on the UK. And according to Ruth Hayhurst of Drill or Drop, she makes the observation, the Calgary-based Connaught Oil and Gas Limited has oil wells and acreage in Alberta, which is valued at 4.22 million. If the decimal point's in the right place there, and it is indeed 4.22 million, then it's not exactly going to make a big dent in Rathlin's debt. So we're going to see how that plays out, but you're welcome to come along and view the proceedings. That will be at the Rolls Building in Fetter Lane, London. The nearest tube station is Chancery Lane. And this hearing with Rathlin Energy is scheduled to start at 11 o'clock. Now, I learned earlier today that there is another hearing actually being scheduled to be heard on Wednesday. at 9:30 in the morning at the Rolls building. And this is an interesting one because it's actually an individual who is looking to sue MI5 for intimidation because of the magnitude of their surveillance. So I'm not going to share any more details on that right now. I can assure you it's not me. But anybody who is interested in pursuing or looking at one or both of those cases, then come along to the Rolls building, Fetter Lane, London, on Wednesday morning. Now, Rathlin, there's a group of people in Northern Ireland that are a little upset that the name Rathlin now has such negative connotation. So a few weeks ago, not even, but I was invited to take the trip over to Northern Ireland and to set foot on Rathlin Island. And there I met some islanders who are extremely upset with Rathlin Energy. And they helped me invoke the spirit of this beautiful island and even donated this shirt for me. So this is it's not a Rathlin Energy shirt, this is Rathlin Island. So this is the positive energy versus the Rathlin Energy negative side of the equation. So it's going to be an interesting week, but now I have to change tack because at least in the UK at the moment, we remain frack free. Unfortunately, elsewhere in the world, they don't have the same luxury. And last week we were joined by phone with Susan Gorman-Chang, and I'm delighted to say that Susan is able to join us by Skype this week, so we can actually see Susan in the flesh, as it were. So Susan, welcome to Fracking Nightmare again.
Thank you for covering our story. We really need to get the word out, so thank you.
Well, I'm pleased to report that it does seem to be trickling into the British media. Of course, if it was a British company like BP, then it would be getting a bit more coverage. But nobody in the UK has heard of SoCal or Southern Californian gas, so it struggles to make it to the latter part of the pages. But just for our viewers who are tuning in for the first time, let's just take a look at where Porter Ranch is situated. So here we have Porter Ranch. Here's Los Angeles. And this is, I think it's about 25 miles or so northwest of Los Angeles. Is that correct, Susan?
Of downtown Los Angeles, yes. Los Angeles, the city, kind of swallowed all the suburbs, and we're in a suburb called the San Fernando Valley. But technically, we are in the city of Los Angeles, about as far as you said from downtown Los Angeles, yes.
And I should imagine that prior to this, it was a beautiful part of the country.
It was beautiful. We moved in 1991. There were sheep, literally sheep, grazing in the hillsides. Lots of coyotes, deer, quail, falcons. Just beautiful, just idyllic. I mean, it was fresh air. It was wonderful.
Well, now there are some, as we discussed last week, in the Porter Ranch area here, and here, of course, is Southern California gas. This is the area here that we're going to be discussing tonight. But there are some 8,000 properties in this area, and all of them are currently being affected by the leaking methane. And in fact, this is, I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I mean, this is an infrared illustration of the contamination in the area. And of course, it's following the roads because this is the contamination that was taken, as we'll look at, by heat. And we'll look at who they are a bit later on. So, what we're looking at here is an area, and this is Porter Ranch. And of course, the area closest to the well is getting the bulk of it. But everywhere around here, basically everywhere around the area, is experiencing high levels of contamination. So since we spoke last week, Susan, tell us what's been going on in Porter Ranch.
Quite a bit, actually. So we have the air quality, AQMD, Air Quality Monitoring District. And they're pretty much, regulators when something goes wrong with the air quality. And so we had a hearing on Saturday, January 9th, and which was continued to Saturday the 16th. And the motion before the board was to perhaps order the respondent, SoCalGas, to immediately cease and desist from operating the facility because it was in violation of health codes, or in the alternative, comply with about 19 other conditions. And so we had hundreds of people giving public testimony, very moving testimony about their health issues, their children, nosebleeds, all sorts of terrible health impacts, all day Saturday and on the 9th, and again all day Saturday and the 16th. And so they still didn't have time to make a decision. They want to deliberate in public, which is good, this 5-member board. And it's continued again, unfortunately, to Wednesday in the middle of a work week and 50 miles east of us at AQMT headquarters in a place called Diamond Bar. So we're going to try to get a bus together to get people who aren't working during the day that can get there and again rally and show support. Now, even before the hearing, we had this awesome group of Save Porter Ranch, Food and Water Watch, Sierra Club, Stand LA, community members. We gave this really good rally for an hour before each of these hearings, and it really showed, I think, our elected officials where we were, and we all held these beautiful placards, "Shut it all down." And that's really what we want. That is, we want the cease and desist order. We want it all shut down. So we're hopeful but guarded. SoCalGas, I would call them as defiant during the hearing. One of their leaders was there, I believe was a CEO in charge of the facility, and he would not answer questions. He would not answer some of the questions. The board asked him, what would a cease and desist order look like? What would be the steps you would take to close this facility if it comes to that? And they said, the SoCalGas said, quote, "Shutting down Aliso Canyon wasn't within the scope of the hearing board," he said, "but fell to the authority of the State Public Utilities Commission." So the person from the gas company refused to answer the question, basically. And he was asked about the feasibility of installing gas safety valves. Remember, we found out not only from the leaking well, but they took out safety valves in many other wells. And he refused to answer a question about the feasibility of putting in safety valves. So in my opinion, they weren't very transparent or cooperative, almost defiant. And at the end of the day, they said, the gas company said, "This field is a strategic asset of the state. We are entitled to operate this field." Wow.
I mean, this seems to be a common denominator amongst CEOs and executives and senior managers of these corporations, is that they go into cognitive dissonance. I mean, I'm sure he didn't go as far as to deny there was a leak, but of course, had he seen an opportunity to do so, I'm sure he would have done.
Well, they did that early on, but we caught him on that one. But yeah, I just think what struck me was the arrogance and the defiance, and almost like to me a lack of concern for the health of the community that they're in. It just was overwhelming in a bad way to us.
So, I mean, they actually acknowledged, I assume, that there have been some negative health impacts.
They didn't directly ask him that question. They didn't really bring that up. That wasn't a question asked of them directly. So they just said very little. The CEO was surrounded by 2 lawyers and then a whole row of lawyers in the front row. And so he, sort of leaned over to his lawyers and, so I asked him, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? And we really, to me, didn't get a lot out of it other than a feeling of that they have a lot of arrogance and they feel they have a right to be there. And that seems to be it for them, And I think they tried, in some of their opening statements also, which they did, they said, we are a public service. We give people cheap gas, and, almost like painting themselves as a wonderful company. They also stated that if that facility were to go offline, it would be very difficult to meet the needs of the people of Los Angeles, but they didn't say impossible. They didn't say impossible. And so even with their carefully worded statement, I think some things came through that, you know what, we can shut this facility down. It won't be the end of the world. There's a lot of gas there stored that is held there until they can sell it at a profit to other people. It's not all just about Southern California and getting, them giving gas to our homes. So that's what came out of that. I'm guardedly hopeful about a decision that'll come out Wednesday. Time will tell, but I think our community really showed a lot of support. I love that Sierra Club came to support us, Food and Water Watch, Stand LA, which is another organization that tries to get the word about how dangerous oil and gas facilities are across Southern California, all of California. And so from that point of view, it was a lot of positive energy from our point of view.
So the hearing, though, I mean, ultimately, does it have any real teeth, or was it purely consultative?
That remains to be seen. Again, the two parts of the orders are AQMD can order them to cease and desist, or in the alternative, comply with the following conditions. And there's so many conditions here. Yes, we promise to check all the wells and enhanced leak detection systems and continuous air monitoring. And as they say, in a health study, but as they say, the devil's in the details. And to make sure they would come through with all of that, I think would be a challenge. They wanted to, initially the order was actually amended because they were one of the conditions they wanted to do, one of the things they wanted to do was to burn it off. And some other agencies like the EPA and California Utilities Commission said, you know what, we think that's a bit dangerous. And this is a headline from a paper, gas utility is warned of catastrophic risk. State wants proof that leaking well near Porter Ranch is stable enough to burn off methane without an explosion. So the more and more that comes out on this daily, the more dangerous it is, the more health impacts that we have. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is the Associated Press, you probably know this, it talks about that SoCal Gas understated the number of air samples showing higher than usual levels of benzene. And, SoCal Gas said, oh, I'm sorry, that was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding in that they didn't think anybody would catch them, I suppose. But yet on the website, even on the California Emergency website, under the AQMD's air monitoring, it doesn't have this update. It doesn't have the update that there are some dangerous levels of benzene being reported. It has old information from December 21st through January 4th. So it's frustrating on so many levels that SoCal Gas, tries to put out some information and someone catches them on it that it's incorrect, and then it's not posted right away on the government websites. And so people read and honestly believe what is on these websites. And so it's just a lot of frustration of it's always like we always have to be chasing them down and saying, okay, this is what you said, prove it, oh, you were wrong. Then they backpedal and say, oh, we're sorry. It's just a constant battle. It's a constant battle to hold them accountable, to even tell the truth, I feel like,
Well, unfortunately, it's a prerequisite, it seems, of being a CEO of one of these extractive industries, and also, of course, a corporate lawyer. And in fact, the corporate lawyers often make the CEOs look angelic, because the corporate lawyers, I mean, to actually be a candidate for those positions, you have to be completely soulless and have a total disregard for humanity. Because the objective of the corporation, of course, is profitability. That's the core objective, and the role of the corporate lawyer is basically to literally trample over anyone who has the audacity to get in the way.
Right, or even question them,
Or even question them, exactly. And of course, I mean, the beauty of this, I know this has been going on now for, nearly 3 months.
Yes.
November, December, nearly 3 months now. October 23rd, wasn't it? It was first identified. So, we are just 5 days short of 3 months. And at least, obviously, with something like this, then fortunately, more and more academics will start to take an interest. In fact, when I showed this graphic earlier, This was taken from an article on EcoWatch, and let me just share a few paragraphs of this. It says the latest development compounds with a new analysis from HEAT, the Home Energy Efficiency Team. This Cambridge, that's Cambridge, Massachusetts. A Cambridge-based non-profit sent Boston University professor Nathan Phillips and Bob Ackley of Gas Safety to take methane measurements around the San Fernando Valley for several days, and their findings were disturbing. The researchers recorded elevated levels of the main ingredient in natural gas, i.e. methane, 10 miles away from the nation's largest gas leak. But it continues. It says, according to HEAT, the researchers drove a high-precision GIS-enabled natural gas analyzer down the roads around the gas leak to create a comprehensive map of the leak around San Fernando Valley. The red on the map indicates where they drove, and the levels of methane they found is shown by the heights of the peaks. Their monitors showed methane levels at 3.4 parts per billion, about twice the level of natural clean air. Another measurement showed 127 parts per million, or an astounding 67 times above normal. But then, this is perhaps the most disturbing part of it. Whatever else may be in the gas, benzene, toluene, xylene, i.e. this is the BTEX chemicals, that is what people may be breathing. But even though we're not measuring things other than methane, there is legitimate concern that there is other nasty stuff in the mix. And I mean, this is the tragedy that yes, of course, methane is the primary component, but it is the other gases like the BTEX gases, benzene, ethylbenzene, the xylenes, and the toluene that will have the most impact on the health of local people. And as we discussed last week, it's always the young, the very young, the elderly, and the sick who, of course, are the first to experience these symptoms. And what the gas industry does is it will identify the one person who doesn't suffer from any negative effects and say, see, they don't have a problem. And of course, the corporate lawyers will use that to mitigate their liability. So, hopefully, more and more academics, will get involved and start to take a look. Now, Susan, I know that for a lot of people, fracking wasn't or isn't a concern in the US. It's almost taken as the norm. And there's been some effort by the gas companies to downplay any fracking in the immediate area of the caverns. But I discovered this. And what this shows is all of these gas wells. Now, I must confess that at the moment, I don't know whether these are conventional gas wells or unconventional. So, go on.
Seven are fracked wells.
How many are fracked? Seven.
Yeah.
So there's seven but is that unconventional geology?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's there's fracking and there's other unconventional. They use many terms because fracking became a dirty word, obviously. But we do know there have been unconventional, at least in 7 of them. That was confirmed, yeah.
Okay, so there is the distinct possibility that if any of these wells were fracked at high volume, high pressure, so close to the storage caverns, then it was a disaster waiting to happen.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And St. Porter Ranch was actually formed to get an environmental impact report for Termo Oil, who wanted to do some more drilling back there. They wanted to build 12 new wells, and we had found they had fracked back there. And so just about a week ago, so we got 1,000 signatures. They had to do an environmental impact report. And about a week ago, they just pulled out. They said, you know what, we're just temporarily withdrawing our request. Hopefully that'll be for good, but yeah, it's like, you've got to be kidding me. With all the stuff that's going on up there, you want to frack more on top of that? Yeah, it's crazy. But getting back to the academic, I do want to thank UC Berkeley and UCLA. They got a grant from the 11th Hour, which is a foundation set up by some people involved in Google. And they are putting testers. They put testers in our backyard, and they're going to be testing, from 2 to 4 weeks, doing some really good testing for all of those chemicals you talked about and more. Again, that's because a nonprofit, some very, generous people came in and are doing this for our community, because we just don't believe, obviously, any of the quote air samples that SoCalGas has been doing. I mean, they're not being honest, and for all we know, they're picking and choosing. And again, they're doing these grab samples, which really don't really do a whole lot and aren't very accurate. So these sensors are going to be there for 2 to 4 weeks, and we're hopeful that we'll get some really good data from them. And again, that's from a charity, that's from a nonprofit that kind of came to our rescue. So.
And now I'm sure that the politicians are looking to capitalize on this for their own ends, but and I cannot believe that any politician at the moment would be supportive of the gas industry.
Correct. They have all come to our side. Now they've all, the other night when we were chanting "Shut it down," our city councilman was chanting that with us. So yeah, we've reached that tipping point where they're all, oh yeah, we're on this for sure. So that's a positive. Again, but we're in this for the long term. It's going to be a long, hard slog, and I hope they stay with us the whole time.
I hope so too.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on now because the leak is still occurring, and the question is, when that one well gets under control, whenever that is, we've got to keep the pressure up, because there's 115 wells up there that are about the same age, and if we don't shut it down, one's going to blow, the next is going to blow, the next. This will never end.
Well, this is an aerial shot of the leaking well, and I mean that is some aperture.
Yeah, I think that from what I understand, from what I read in the paper, that happened from the several times they tried to, shove some brine down there, and it came back up. I mean, I think they actually created a trench. They made it worse by trying to stop it up, is the way that was explained to me.
I mean, really what is staggering, I mean, I visited Kuwait. I was one of the first civilians to go into Kuwait at the end of the first Gulf War in '91. And I visited Kuwait a number of times over the next 8 months as the wells were being dealt with. And now there were 4 firefighting teams there. Red Adair never set foot in Kuwait himself, but his company were there. The other 3 companies were Safety Boss, Wild Well Control, and Boots and Coots. And of course, Boots and Coots was famously acquired by Halliburton just about a month or so before the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster. But, what is remarkable is that of the expertise that was gained during the firefighting exercise, well, it was more an exercise, but what it's referred to in Kuwait, that none of that expertise can be brought to bear to deal with one well that's on land, so it's easily accessible, and has been blowing for 3 months now.
Right. And Coots and Boots have actually been brought in. I mean, the gas company says we have the worldwide experts, they're here. And that's what makes us think, what aren't you telling us? And is this relief well even going to work? I mean, I don't know. We just feel like there's a lot they're not telling us. It's a lot worse than they're telling us. Things trickle out every day like this, the warning of the catastrophic risk of burning it off. I mean, I think it's so out of control. I think they're really trying to control the information coming out, but it's leaking out. And I think it's just a lot worse than they're ever going to tell us.
Well, let's hope that nobody's stupid enough to light a cigarette anywhere around that area.
Gosh, yeah. And I don't know, and there's a lot of people that are still trying to relocate, but I wish they would just get everyone out of there. I mean, I think it's too dangerous. I mean,
how many people are left in Porter Ranch now?
At least no one has died yet. It's like, what? You're going to wait till someone dies? I mean, yeah, it's astounding.
Well, they haven't died yet, but it's, of course, it's the long-term effects. And, I mean, as we know, basically anybody who, manages to see this year through, the gas company will simply claim, well, nothing to do with us. I mean, obviously, weeks and months have passed.
Right.
Plausible deniability.
The cigarette industry, the asbestos industry, all those things take years. And they hide the truth and they hide the studies, and it's just, it's unconscionable. It really is.
Well, it's when Southern California Gas bring in Hill and Knowlton, then you're definitely getting nothing but a bunch of lies. A PR company that has no concept of truth.
Yeah.
So, Susan, what's the game plan for next week now? Are there many families actually still left in Porter Ranch?
There still are. Again, we had a meeting Friday with the California Office of Emergency Services, a town hall, where people expressed their frustration about the slowness of all of this procedure. And I think they're going to try to quickly, move some more people out quicker. So that's the game plan for there. We're going to keep on AQMD and see what their decision is Wednesday. And whatever it is, we're going to keep kind of their feet to the fire and make sure SoCalGas does whatever it says it's going to do, and continue with the independent air monitoring. And it's just going to be, and of course the lawsuits are still all going on. City of Los Angeles sued them. There's private lawsuits going on. It's going to be a long haul. Thursday we meet with the Public Utilities Commission. And I have to tell you, at the town hall meeting, it was the strangest thing. The Public Utility Commission, somebody asked him a question, and he said, I have this quote here, and he said, they said, why did you regulators let this happen? When is SoCalGas, how did you allow this to happen? How did Public Utilities Commission not take action? And the person from the California Public Utilities Commission, which I'm calling PUKE for short, said, this is an infrastructure problem. We don't understand wells very well. That's our regulator? And I thought, did you know you said that out loud? I mean, it's like, you're a regulator and you're actually saying we don't understand wells too well. It just astounds me. So,
well, you see, our regulators would say it would never happen here in the UK because we have the most robust regulatory controls in the world. And likewise, they have no clue.
They said the same thing to us, and we're finding out how really on our own we are. When we have to bring in, nonprofits to do air quality monitoring, boy, you're on your own, right?
Absolutely. Now, Susan, I'm going to have to let you go in a second, but before you do, Steve, you've been listening to what Susan's had to say, and this is Dr. Stephen Pears. He's had a very interesting week as well. He's been arrested twice in the last 7 days. We'll be talking more about that in a few minutes. And of course, he's been arrested for trying to prevent what has happened in California ever getting anywhere close to the UK. But Steve, what are your thoughts on hearing what Susan's had to say?
Well, it just confirms what we already know about these corrupt corporations. They've got too much power. They've got very little regulation. They just lie through the teeth. They can break the law. A corporation has all the human rights that we've got as individuals, but none of the responsibility. They cannot be held to account. They will break the law and pay the fine at a later date. And that's to our detriment. It's gonna end up killing many people if we let it go ahead. We just need to stop it at every stage, and that's what we're doing here now in the UK. We're saying no to it. We don't want any test drilling. We don't want any holes bored in the ground, and we will put ourselves in physical way of them doing that at each and every stage, because we know that they're the liars, the cheats. And it's a dishonest way of conducting business.
I'm amazed that you hold them in such high regard, Steve, because I certainly do not. But Susan, thank you so much for joining us again. And hopefully you'll come back as things unfold and give us a further update of what's going on in Porter Ranch. And of course, we are monitoring it here from the UK. Our thoughts are with you all. And we only hope that somebody somewhere within the corporations actually has a conscience and starts acknowledging and accepting that responsibility. And of course, pigs might also fly, but we can but hope. Susan, thanks very much, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. Now we're going to have a couple of musical interludes in our breaks today. And the first track is called No Fracking Way. And this is by Leo Sayer. And after this, we'll be talking in depth with Dr. Stephen Pears about his experiences at Upton.
Lesson 1, load your gun, drill the land till kingdom come. Lesson 2, grease some wheels, gas and sexy, spin a deal. Lesson 3, something leaks, poison water, spread disease. Did you think we'd stand by and let you do it? No! Did you think we'd stand by and let you do it? No! No fracking way! No fracking way! Get your dirty mitts off! Pack up, go away! No fracking way! No fracking way! We ain't gonna move! We ain't gonna sway! You're asking, so I tell you, mate. No fracking way! No way! Make a banner, cause a scene. Tell these fools just what it means. Get off your butt, raise your voice. Tell these fools you ain't got no choice. Yeah, are we gonna stand by and let them do it? No! Are we gonna stand by and let them do it? No! No fracking way! No fracking way! Greedy money is the game! We ain't gonna play! No fracking way! No fracking way! Take your gravy train! Go back where you came! Get out of my face! Get off my place! No fracking way! No way! Whew.
I was born and I was raised right here.
Yeah, my daddy was a farmer here.
And my kids are growing up around here. Yeah, we love the countryside around here.
Will we sit back and let it all go on?
Or do we fight what the government's done? It's our land that we're living on.
So let's mobilize before the diggers come. Yeah! Woo! So lock the gate behind you. Take your shovels, take your picks.
Ain't nothing here that's broken, nothing you need to fix. You say it's only progress, but you didn't ask me.
Oh, we love Mother Country.
Just go on where the ancestors be.
What did you think we'd stand by and let them do it? No! Did you think we'd stand by and let them do it? No! No fracking way! No fracking way! Get your daddy mitts off! Pack up, go away! No fracking way! No fracking way! We ain't gonna move! We ain't gonna sway! Ask me, so I tell you, mate! No fracking way! No way! No way! No way! No fracking way!
And welcome back to part 2 of Fracking Nightmare. And our thoughts are certainly with the residents of Porter Ranch. And of course, the government, the DEC officials, the HSE officials, the Environment Agency, the industry will all tell you it could never happen here. Don't worry your pretty little heads about it, because we have the most robust regulatory controls of anywhere in the world. And of course, in reality, we have not a single regulatory control that is applicable to unconventional gas exploitation. Now, I am pleased to be able to welcome a new face to Fracking Nightmare. Making his debut tonight is Matt Bryan. Matt, are you there?
Evening, Ian. How you doing?
Good evening. How you doing? Matt, do you want to just pull your camera down just a tad? It's looking... there we go, there we go. That's better. It was sort of like right there on your head. So, Matt, you've had a very interesting week, but from a different perspective, because you, I believe, are a local Labour councillor.
That's right, yeah. I represent Upton on the Cheshire West and Chester Council, both in a borough capacity and an elected parish councillor as well.
So the Upton site that iGas want to exploit is within the ward that you represent?
That's right, yeah. The coal-bed methane exploration well, which they're trying to do. That was granted in 2009. An extension was granted last year, and obviously the camp's been there for the last 18 months until last week.
Last Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I know that you've been a great supporter of the camp. But what has been the general feeling of the constituents in your ward?
I mean, my election really was a mini referendum, if you like, on the public feeling of fracking in the Upton ward. It's a 2-councillor ward. It was one of the Conservatives' strongest seats in the borough. And last May, I managed to get elected to fight the anti-fracking agenda at a council level.
So is this the first time a Labour councillor has been elected in this ward?
For a long time, yes.
So that should certainly send a message. Now I know, as I say, that you've been a supporter of the camp, but you unfortunately found yourself in a situation where you were also arrested last Tuesday. And was this something that was completely spontaneous?
Yeah, it was. It was something I hadn't really decided on doing beforehand. I don't think my arrest is any more special than the other 10 people that got arrested. But when I arrived at the site, there was absolutely no way the police or the bailiffs had undertaken a health and safety examination of the field. Obviously believing the people underground, which there were. There was absolutely no way that the bailiffs had done a thorough inspection of the field. When I saw bailiffs literally swarming the field without a care in the world, with not looking for entrances, certainly not looking for any areas which might collapse. When I saw the heavy goods vehicles making their way towards the field, I had to act, and so I just jumped on one and refused to move until I got a confirmation from Cheshire Police that the appropriate health and safety checks had been done. That was the second time that day I've been lied to by Cheshire Police. In my capacity as a ward councillor, I'd met with pretty senior ranking police officials who had maintained that they were going to keep public access to the road open for the eviction, which was clearly never their plan. As soon as they moved into the eviction, they closed the road immediately and stopped any public scrutiny of what was happening there. Before I got a chance to speak to the Bronze Commander, Ian Gallagher, I was removed and forced down the road, which is when I saw the heavy goods vehicles trying to get on.
So, would I be right in saying that this is the first time that you've ever been arrested?
It's the first time I've been arrested in Upton. I was legally observing at a site in Boras, an eviction last year, where I was unfortunately arrested for and later released without charge.
Okay, but I mean, also that's
certainly not something I make a habit of.
No. But I mean, my point being is that, okay, so you had 2 arrests, and both have been related to trying to protect effectively the environment and the people who live in those areas, because Boras is also an iGas target, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very close. It's about 7 miles from Chester, although over the border. It's not far. It's interesting to know we've got. You talked about community consensus earlier. We did a street survey of roughly just over half of the ward, which is 7,000 people. I think 3,500 people were surveyed at random at the last count, and we've got an 86% objection to coal bed methane extraction and shale gas extraction just in our ward alone. So there's a clear opposition to the industry. When the camp was first set up, listening to the lady before from California, and they were talking about CEOs like an absolute inability to tell the truth. We were told at the time when the camp was set up by Dart Energy, our protests were premature and unnecessary. As that turns out, how right we were with iGas describing our whole area of shale gas targets and licenses. It turns out everything that they said was a complete lie as well.
Well, of course, we had first-hand experience of the iGas deceit in the Barton Moss campaign, where they were effectively telling local residents that they were only interested in the coal bed methane, whilst actually drilling down to the bedrock below the shale. So it was clearly a shale exploratory well.
Sorry, yeah, we've seen the same at 3 sites here in Cheshire as well. They did the same at Portside, Inchmarshes, and we believe Farnham, but they've not released the results for that site yet. And there's absolutely no reason to doubt that they'll do the same in Upton. I actually mentioned this to John Blameyers at a working group party at the Cheshire West fracking working group, and I said, well who do you think you are going to these depths without the appropriate permissions? He said he was just sneered and said, "I'll do exactly what I want," and I thought that was quite telling. I reported the breaches to the British Geological Survey, the Council, and the Environment Agency, and all 3 authorities pointed the fingers at each other and said it's their responsibility, and it's just an absolute regulatory muddle. Nothing's improved. We've seen massive cuts to the Environment Agency. And that was a fundamental part of the Royal Society of Engineers reaching their conclusion. But one of their stipulations of reaching the conclusion that shale gas could be extracted safely was that the agencies which were regulating the industry would have to have adequate funding. Now we've seen a further 25% slashed. So it's not looking hopeful, really.
And they don't have the expertise within those agencies anyway. I mean, they don't have sufficient resources to monitor a single well site, let alone the intended multiple well sites. But Matt, I just want to take a look at this photograph here, because this is the scene that greeted you as you approached the well site, the field where the camp was located. And I believe there was something in the region of about 200 police from multiple police forces involved in this operation.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's completely disproportionate to what they were trying to achieve. 200 officers on any day when there could have only never been a maximum of 30 to 40 people on a camp is just it's intimidatory. It's not and it's subsidisation of big business. I mean, we've seen the bailiffs certainly had less than 200 bailiffs on the site, probably around 100. So Cheshire Police wasted 260 grand last year on really quite minor protests regarding fracking. And now we've got Mark Roberts, who was obviously the head honcho at the Barton Moss protests, and now he's running Cheshire Police in a similar style and using absolutely unwarranted Section 35s on public protesters. Peaceful protesters, when as you'll know, the section was made to deal with antisocial behaviour. Certainly not old ladies and families from a peaceful suburb of Chester.
Oh no, they're getting desperate. I mean, and as we'll see in part 3, maybe there's some reason for that desperation, because they don't want to acknowledge that they were wrong. They don't want to acknowledge that basically over a year ago, those of us who have a little bit of insight were trying to raise awareness of the OPEC agenda and the neocon agenda to tank the oil price. Now with the oil price below $30 a barrel, I mean, these companies have absolutely no possibility of generating any real income. In fact, iGas bragged in their last company report that they had reduced their operating costs so that they could be profitable at $32 a barrel. Well, that's great when it's 50 or $60 a barrel, but when it's 28 and change or 29 and change, that means that iGas and their shareholders are effectively subsidizing every barrel of oil that comes out of the ground to the tune of $2 or $3. But Matt, we're going to come back in a few minutes and we'll bring Steve back into the discussion. But we're going to take a short break now. It's another track with the title No Fracking Way. And this is by Johnny McCloskey, who lives in the Inner Hebrides, the beautiful Inner Hebrides off the coast of Scotland. And Johnny kindly donated this track to the closing credits of Voices from the Gas Fields. But here it is with a little bit of video that I put together earlier today.
Shale gas is part of the future and we will make it happen.
They're gonna drill down beneath this town, no fracking way. The wheels are turning, can you hear that sound? No fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground, no fracking way. Will we let that happen while we're still around? No fracking way. When there's no water left and there's none to drink, no fracking way. Is that when the suits will stop and think? No fracking way. Just how low can they stoop and sink? No fracking way. While Mother Earth quakes and there's the link, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town, I said, no fracking way. No one asked us if it was okay, no fracking way. But they're making their plans come what may, no fracking way. They'll wipe us all out if they get their way, no fracking way. But we stand united and we say, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna dig down beneath this town, no fracking way. The wheels are turning, can you hear that sound? No fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground, no fracking way. Will we let that happen while we're still around? No fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town, I said, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground, I said, no fracking way.
That's No Fracking Way by Johnny McCloskey. And hopefully that'll be the theme tune for the events up and down the country to raise awareness of this insidious industry on Saturday, January 31st. More of which a little later. Now, before we go back to Matt and Steve, I just want to flag up that tomorrow morning, that's Tuesday, it's a bit late for anybody that's watching this on YouTube, but tomorrow morning in Nottinghamshire, there will be a gathering outside Nottinghamshire Town Hall, and Nottingham Town Hall, that is. And this is to raise awareness of the meeting being held to discuss the boreholes to be approved around the Mithane Springs well site. More information on the Frack Free Nottinghamshire website. So, Steve and Matt, you're both still with me, I hope?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay, now, after the eviction, they had a massive display of support at an event on Saturday, I believe. Here's a picture from Dave Ellison and his outstanding photography. And this is the gathering on Saturday. Now, I've seen reports. The BBC said there were 400 people there. So that must mean there was at least 1,000.
Yeah, I'd put the figure far above their low estimate. There was 1,000 people. Obviously, you've got quite a few in that picture there. They spilled out onto the roads. They couldn't fit into the pavilion, and the queue for burgers and cups of tea was just immense. Like we stood in line for a long time. Just so it was chock-a-block. So I'd say easily into the thousands.
Well, and of course, the eviction certainly got good coverage in the local paper, although not very much on the wider national media, of course. But nonetheless, I mean, it has, I think, flagged up that the local population now have to step up to the plate, just like the population did in East Yorkshire after Rathlin and Humberside Police had evicted the camps there.
I think we've seen a bit of media coverage nationally. We got 4 minutes on today's One Show, for example. That was broadcast nationally, and the eviction had two news reports in Northwest tonight, which was pretty fair coverage. So I think pretty early on in the battle, I think we're getting pretty good national coverage. And if you look at the Lancashire campaign, they fought an amazing campaign. It was only towards the end that they were picking up anything national. So obviously we've learned a lot from the other campaigns around the country, and obviously it's becoming a bit more of a public issue now. So it's something that people want to learn about, and it's people are interested. So long may it continue.
But the crucial element isn't so much the national, is it? I mean, the crucial element really is the local community, because it is literally a case of stopping this community by community. Because if the local community ultimately doesn't step up to the plate, then the trucks will roll in. But I mean, it's looking to me like that's a pretty good turnout of the local community. I know that there were a few people, obviously, from the camp and from Woolston and from Boras, but nonetheless, I mean, from my reports, I hear that there was a very, very significant percentage of local people who were absolutely shocked by what they saw on Tuesday.
Yeah, and it's been a real pulling together of the community. If there's any benefit of fracking, it really is the pulling together and the joining of communities, which probably it's never happened in my lifetime. Heard stories from the Second World War from my grandparents, but perhaps this is the only time that we've seen in modern history where communities have pulled together to fight something that they don't believe in, all walks of life.
No, in many ways, I have made the observation before, in many ways this is a gift, because it is pulling communities together, as you rightly say, like nothing before, with the possible exception of poll tax maybe, but even that wasn't on a sort of community by community basis so much. So yeah, this is something that I think will grow, because we're also seeing that as people start to understand the magnitude of the deception and the support by government of a corporation that causes phenomenal damage wherever it becomes established, then people are starting to question other issues as well.
police did their very best to keep the numbers down at our protest following the eviction. They were giving out Section 35 notices. I was given one. I wasn't allowed on the march. I went as far as I was allowed to under the conditions of my bail. But they're absolutely abusing their powers under Section 35. It's brought in under the public order. But what they're using it for is to try and illegalize peaceful protest. And there's no doubt that this is what happened all during the eviction and after. We've had peaceful protest, and the police have been issuing, just like they're giving out toffees or something, these Section 35 notices. To keep people away and try and lower the numbers down. There's lots of people that wanted to go that weren't able because of these notices, and the absolutely intimidatory numbers of police that absolutely surrounded the pavilion and the whole route up to the drill site on Dutton's Lane. It was absolutely intimidation at its best. We had evidence gatherers going around with cameras pointing them in people's faces. I had to go up and ask them to leave because it was just immensely rude, and obviously they're pushing this corporate agenda, assisting iGas.
Well, Steve, this is a very, very significant change in police tactics because if you remember at Barton Moss, although we had a heavy presence of police every day on Barton Moss Road, when we had the rallies, there was hardly any police in sight. In fact, I mean, it was as though the police and the Thugs Are Us, TAU, took a day off when there was a rally on. And even when we had something like 4,000 people on that beautiful, beautiful day in Manchester, where we actually held up the traffic in the city for an hour or so, there wasn't a police officer in sight. But in Chester, it's completely the opposite.
Yeah, we've seen a complete reversal in the policing styles of what we initially. I joined the campaign in Farndon. It was after a group of there was a big rally held there from members of the Barton Moss camp and came over, and I picked up on the campaign around that time. And the policing style from that time was very much the police were popping into the tea tent to borrow tea bags and sugar. There was a really kind of nice atmosphere there. There was no arrests, and it was kind of a community feel to it all. And then we saw a similar kind of stance in Ellesmere Port, certainly at the Solidarity Day there, where there was only one or two officers. And now it's gone to the point where even minor protests now are covered by large-scale policing operations, complete with helicopters. Quite a worrying development today was the parish council had been approached by Cheshire Police for the CCTV footage from the pavilion, which is the parish hall essentially, so that police can go through the CCTV. I'm guessing, but probably just to look through and to gain more intelligence, just who was there.
And this is completely outrageous, and I hope the council politely told the police where to go.
Yeah, they've used until the police provide robust evidence to suggest why it would be a good idea, what crimes have been committed, if any, and the footage will be staying firmly in the hands of the parish council.
Well, signs that the establishment is getting desperate. Guys, we're running towards the end of the show here. I wanted to just put this picture on the screen. This is, again, one of Dave Ellison's beautiful photographs. And, of course, this is somewhat iconic here. And this is one of the protectors on top of his tower. And I think he was one of the last to be got down. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be me, Ian.
Yeah. It's a great photograph. It's a great photograph.
It's very iconic, and a lot of protectors there. We had forewarning. We got tip-offs from within the police operation that they were going to be moving that day. All the protectors got into their positions and got locked on into extremely well fortified positions underground, in towers. We were abused on that day. The police gave the bailiffs free rein to go in there and commit loads and loads of breaches of health and safety. We had covers ripped off, people that were well covered away from the elements. The covers were whipped away, blankets were taken away, and they were left exposed to one of the worst days that we've had, cold weather. People came off that field with hypothermia. One police officer took the inner lining of his jacket out and gave it to one of the protesters because he was clearly freezing. And the health and safety violations that I witnessed and filmed on that day need investigating, and the bailiffs held to account, and the police for standing back and just letting those breaches occur. I said to a number of liaison officers, look at that person over there, he's shivering, he's cold, his blanket's been taken away, just get him a thermal blanket over there. And these requests were ignored for a long time. People were just suffering from the cold, left exposed to that. It was atrocious, but many people held out for significant periods, and the tower was certainly one of the last elements to fall, and we got some excellent footage of the activities from that
thanks
tower.
to you, Steve. There's a lot of footage, of course, live stream footage on Bambuser. There were actually, I think, about 4 live streams on the day, but your own Bambuser channel went from having, I think, about a dozen views at the start of the day to about over 9,000 the last time I looked. So anybody wanting to look at the live stream, just put into your search engine Bambuser and Upton, and you can have a feast of footage that was live streamed on the day. Matt and Steve, thanks for joining me this evening. I appreciate your input, and well done to you guys. Well done to all of the people involved in the Upton protection community, and of course to all the local residents who came out in support. So just before we sign off for the evening, the No Fracking Way. This is, hopefully Johnny McCloskey's song will become the theme tune, and maybe this artwork will become the theme artwork for events up and down the country, these fracking awareness events. And if you use Facebook, then just search for No Fracking Way, and you'll find that there are events literally right throughout the country. From the southwest, these are designated events now, right through the southwest, the Isle of Wight, up through the northwest, up in Yorkshire, and of course the central belt of Scotland. But let's try and see if we can get an event in every major centre of population around the country. This is an insidious industry. This industry must never get a foothold in this densely populated island. We have seen the effects in Australia, in California, in Oklahoma, in Pennsylvania. It doesn't matter where you go, wherever this industry has got its bits in the ground, unfortunately, environmental tragedy has soon followed. But we have a helping hand from, of course, the neocons and OPEC. The neocons desperate to destroy the economies of Iran and Russia through bombing the oil price, and OPEC happy to play along because they get the increased market share. And if we look at what's happened over the last 2 years, of course, we see the high, well over $100 a barrel, not even 2 years ago, down to, and this is about 5 o'clock this afternoon, $29.42. We look at just the last 3 months, and we've seen the price of oil almost half. It peaked at just under $51 a barrel in November, in mid-November, and here it is right now, again down at $29.42. And of course, as I said earlier, Iranian oil coming back on the international market. Of course, the Americans lifted it after the release of the captured Marines, which was, of course, done intentionally to give Obama something to talk about in his State of the Nation address. But regardless of what the Americans do, Iranian oil coming on stream is only going to add to the enormous glut that's out there. And, of course, the impact on the various companies. And, of course, iGas is our marker. It is a publicly listed company. It is now down 92% on the high of almost exactly 2 years ago in January of 2014. And now it is down to 14 pence. And as we now know, every barrel that iGas now produce is costing their investors $3 a barrel. This is the last 3 months. don't expect to see it increase anytime soon. So all to play for. And of course, my next round with Rathlin Energy will be in the Rolls Building, Fetter Lane, this Wednesday at 11 o'clock. All support gratefully acknowledged. So see you then. Otherwise, Fracking Nightmare will be back in 2 weeks on Monday, the 1st of February. So until then, good night.